Hello, Highcroft Huskies. We are going to get started on our Principles of Design book. So we finished up with the elements of art. The elements of art are the ingredients. And now we're going to take a look at the Principles of Design, which is sort of the directions of how we're going to use those ingredients to make a delicious art recipe. So I hope you like my music. Thought that would be a little zippy. And on the right hand side of this slide, you will also see a link to some Zentangles. And Zentangles are basically doodles where you're using the elements of art and thinking about the principles of design while you create some really interesting kinds of non-objective or abstract doodles. So it's sort of advanced doodling. So if you've never heard of a Zentangle, I think they're really interesting. People like them because they sort of enjoy them and they're kind of fun and relaxing to do. But we're going to be focusing on the principles of design, and if you want to think about how the people who created some of those Zentangles use the principles of design, you can do that. Or if you want to try and make one of your own, you can do that too. So let's take a look at, we're just going to look at the first 3 pages and do the first 3 pages of the book, and we'll do the next 3 next time. So when I open up my little book, you can see there's something in there now. I have pattern and emphasis on these first couple of pages. So let me bring this a little closer so you can see. So over here, on the pattern side. Pattern is repetition, and you should know that one by now, but just be aware of how much pattern you see around you. If you look around the room that you're in now, you'll probably see patterns all around. You'll see patterns in fabric, patterns in things like wrapping paper, some wrapping paper over here. Okay, it's everywhere. So pattern is repetition. Some patterns are very regular, others are not. So they might be slightly random, but you still have that repetition. Another type of pattern is over here, a radial symmetry. So things that have symmetry usually often have pattern. And so this right here, when the design sort of radiates outwards and repeats, is radial. And then down here, I have sort of a pattern that's sort of spilling out from that. So those are my examples of pattern. And again, you might want to just do one pattern here, or, you know, it's really up to you. Your pattern page doesn't have to look like mine. Next thing I have here is emphasis. So emphasis is what you do to sort of make the things that you want people to notice first stand out when you're creating a work of art. So you'll see on the top, I've sort of outlined one of those bubble shapes that I did, and your eye sort of goes there first. Kind of like when you're reading in a text and one of the words is in bold print, you know that's an important word. And so this would draw your eye to that particular shape. Speaking of shape, on the side there you can see another way to emphasize something in your artwork might be to make that thing, whatever it is, a little different. So in this case, I made the shape pointy. You kind of notice that because it's different from all the other shapes. And then finally on the bottom for emphasis, I added in how you can emphasize something with color. So again, looking at that little rectangle with the bubbles, you notice that orange bubble right away because it's a different color from all the other bubbles. There's other ways to emphasize things. You can add extra details to something. You can make it a little brighter. So emphasis is just, if you want somebody to notice something in particular in your artwork, how can you make it stand out? All right, and then finally, we get to the page of variety. And And so we already talked about patterns, so I did 2 striped patterns here. One of them has variety and the other does not. When you look at those 2 patterns, which is the better pattern? Which is more interesting? Which one would you want to, say, put on your beach towel? I would say this one. So by having variety and contrast, I've made a more interesting pattern. Okay? So variety means you're not repeating everything the same way, you're changing something, okay? Things are different in there. So I made the lines thicker in some places and thinner in others, and then I added some dashing lines to give it variety. And then for contrast, I added some color contrast, and contrast and variety are sort of similar. So if you want something to really stand out, if you remember when we talked about color, contrasting colors would be colors that are complementary across from each other on the color wheel. So orange and blue is one example, or black and white will also give you a lot of contrast. So variety and contrast kind of make things pop. So you need to think about what you can do to really make your artwork pop and make it more noticeable and pleasing to the eye. So those are the 3 that we're going to focus on today. And again, I don't expect you to copy what I did, but I want you to think about variety. Maybe draw something that would be an example of variety in your mind. And then again, going back to these other pages, drawing something that makes you think of pattern, maybe a pattern that you see or a pattern that you've made up. And then what kinds of ways could you incorporate emphasis? What would you do to emphasize something that you want folks to notice in your art? And again, these are your notes, these are your reference pages that you can go back to when you're creating something. Now, if you want to do something besides the book, wrap that back around, you can give trying to make a Zentangle doodle a try. You can take a look at the examples on the website that I've linked to with those images, or not. That part's optional. But I do want you to do the 3 pages in the book. The next time we get together, we'll finish the book. We'll do the last 3 pages, and we'll talk about unity and balance, rhythm and movement, and proportion. So we'll save those other 3 pages for later. If you want to look in your workbook and review those terms, you're welcome to do that. But that's it for today. So enjoy working in your little workbook and getting those 3 pages done, and I'll see you next time. Bye.